Welcome back, everybody. For the West Coast Fishing Report, I'm Captain Sergio. We got Captain George, and we got Ryan Blumberger. Blumberg. All right, and it's Omni Marine, and you need to get your phone up a little bit so we can see your face.
How's that?
No, that's down. Oh, there you go. There you go. Us Cubans, we do it backwards. You're supposed to be doing it right. All right. Now, let me tell you about Ryan. If you own a Skeeter or a lot of the towers out there, if you look at the little logo, it says Omni Marine. That's Ryan. Been doing this for a lot of years. I met him about a month ago because of my association with Skeeter. And I'll tell you what, I was very, very impressed with his operation. And he wouldn't be very good if he wasn't really good. Skeeter wouldn't be working with him and a lot of the other companies. So he's got a very good reputation. He's in Inglewood, so he's a Florida company, which is great. It's always good to support the local economy. And Ryan, this is George. He's my co-host on the show.
How you doing, George?
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Now, I know when you and I talked, you talked a little bit about. Tell us a little bit how Omni got started, and you know, and your relationship with Skeeter, because that's kind of interesting, you know.
Well, we got started about 28 years ago, and we basically just didn't have anybody in my area doing what we're doing as far as aluminum fabrication, T-tops, towers, so on and so forth. And you know, we decided to I decided to just go all out and went over to IBEX over in Orlando, and I went ahead and bought all the equipment and did everything I was supposed to do, and just started from scratch, really. I mean, just basically, you know, went all in, which most people don't do. They kind of just take tiptoe steps, and you know, I went all in on it and tried to make sure everything was the right way, and started out with the right amount of equipment and so on and so forth. But then we just grew from there, and everything was top of the line stuff. Everything is high quality with us. We don't do anything that's low quality, our machinery is high quality. Our goods that we use, our aluminum that we use, so on and so forth, is all high quality. And, you know, that's how we maintain our consistency. You know, that's what Skeeter is about. I would say when in the bay boat market, I know you've pretty much just came on with them, Sergio, but I've been with them for probably 12, 13 years now. It's our 13th year. And as far as bay boats are concerned, I've seen all of them. I'm not going to go through all the different makes, but trust me, I've seen every make you could possibly think of. And it is probably the best boat out there that I've worked on as far as the build and the longevity. You know, you see a boat after 5 or 10 years come in and they've got stress marks, you know, stress cracks and loose hatches and so on and so forth. And, you know, you don't see that with the Skeeters come in, and their floors all have aluminum where they're supposed to be for all the towers and T-tops put in. That's a real big key with people putting in T-tops and towers. You got to have reinforcement in that floor. Your floor's got to be strong. Your console's got to be strong. Your build's got to be strong. Your bond to the floor, to the stringers, has got to be strong. Every bit of that with Skeeter is a check mark in every box. And that's why, you know, they last the way they do. And we don't really have warranty issues with Skeeter because their boats, and our tops are very high quality too, but their boats are, bar none, you know, they just last a long time. And if you have a good solid foundation for your boat, then you have a good solid foundation for the top.
You said that does every Skeeter boat from the factory have the aluminum plate under the deck in case you want to put a T-top later? Or
yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because I know some of the companies, if you order it from the factory with a T-top or something, they reinforce it. But if it's not going to be ordered with a T-top or a tower, they don't put anything under there.
That's correct. And we do put tops and towers on boats that don't have anything for reinforcement in the floor. But Skeeter puts it in on every one only because you may not want it now. The dealer may not order it with one on it, but when they sell it, the customer's always got that option to put it on. And when they do put it on, it's going to be able to hit aluminum and they're not going to have any issues down the road.
Nice.
And the other thing because George and I were in that 241 that you put the T-top on it that we were shooting out of the other day. And he made the remark about, man, this piping is big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's heavy duty.
The hard tops, them hard tops, I'll tell you, they're about 110 pounds. And people don't realize that, you've got to really, I would say you can get away with 1.5 pipe, which is outside diameter 2-inch, but you're going to have warranty issues. You're going to have cracks. You're going to have things go wrong down the road. And I honestly don't want to have people come back and have issues down the road. I want that boat to leave, and I don't ever want to see that customer again unless they want something else from me.
Right.
And that's where consistency comes in. That's where quality comes in. There's a bunch of different manufacturers out there for pipes. There's a bunch of different manufacturers out there for hard tops. And we make the hard tops for Skeeter. We make the frames for Skeeter. We make the leaning posts for Skeeter. We make the swim platforms for Skeeter, the grab rails for Skeeter. And pretty much everything aluminum for Skeeter we make. We powder coat it for Skeeter. And, it's a good marriage between us and a very good high quality company like Skeeter, because if you don't have a good quality foundation and a good quality boat, you could have a really good tower and a really good T-top, and it's not going to last as long, or it might last less very long at all if the boat is not a well-built boat.
Would it be, and I guess this is a hypothetical question, but if you, even though you might have a real good tower or a good T-top, if that console has a lot of flex in it or on the floor, that could cost you some cracks on the weld or not?
It can cause fatigue in your frame, of course, but it can also damage the boat. You can get damaged. The console will start to have stress cracks in it. The floor could delaminate from the stringers. I've had that happen on a couple of boats. That's a good shot of a half tower we do for Skeeter. The bottom line is that your foundation is your floor connected to your stringers, the aluminum on your floor, and then the console is your upper support system for the tower or / T-top hardtop. If that console is not a good upper support system, then you're going to have a failure from the top down. We have a cushion and canvas shop as well. We do, state-of-the-art cushions and canvas for works for boats. We take boats that have already been built and we reupholster them. We take new boats and add additional bow cushions and things like that for people. That's a full tower for a 240 Skeeter.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the questions that always comes up with other captains and people that I know is, unless you have a breakdown tower, what height do you have to meet to make sure that, because, the bridges have to be a minimum height, correct? Overpass.
Well, no, I mean, that's not exactly true. I mean, I wish it were, but it's not. It's not. It's they've got on Don Pedro Island and over by Boca Grande and stuff. They've got some really low bridges, and it's not just about bridges. It's about it's really about the
trailer
overhead height when you're driving down the road. It can be you have certain gas stations are different heights when you go into certain gas stations, things like that. If anybody has a tower or wants a tower and they want it to be a specific, clearance, if there's any question at all, we always recommend to do a folding tower. They're a little more of a pain, but if you have to fold it, you don't always have to, but if you did need to fold it, the option's there for you to do so. So it makes it easier for you if you're a captain and you want to get into a certain area and you can't because your tower's too tall. You just, take a couple minutes, pop your bolts out, flip it over, and off you go. So it's not a bad idea to have, a folding option on a full tower. Half towers are there to make sure you don't really need to have it fold at that point because you're keeping it almost around a T-top height.
Right. Because somebody says there was 3 towers. You have the full tower, a short tower, and a half tower. Somebody said.
Well, so yeah, okay. Your short towers are your shoal water towers. You got a box that's inside of a flats boat, and then it's like maybe an 18 or 20 inch raised box, and then you put a short tower on top of the box. And that's more of a single station running tower. It's basically your only area where you run, and that's it. It's a single station tower, and that's it. And they're short, and they're on top of a raised box,
Right.
and then you get into a half tower, which that's usually between 10 to 15 inches above your normal console height, the top of your console, and you look over the floor that you normally stand on when you're up running the tower from downstairs. If you're running from downstairs, you look over the floor, and then a full tower is up higher and you look under the floor when you're downstairs. And I've had a lot of different captains have told me that a half tower and a full tower, as far as sight fishing, it's really not a huge advantage for a full tower to be up there that extra 1.5 feet. If it's not really that big of a deal. Now, if you get into a hard top when you're standing on top of the hard top and you're up 80, you're out 7 feet off the deck. Now that gets you a little more line of sight, bird's eye view from further away. You can spot fish further away.
Right.
But as far as the half tower and the full tower, about 1.5 feet difference between the heights. It's not a big, huge advantage. I see a lot of guys out there. They say they can see the reds and the snook with a half tower just about as easy. It's really, to be honest with you, it comes down to having a good set of polarized glasses. If you get the glare off of the water, if you get that glare off the water and you're not getting a glare and and the water clarity is pretty good, you're going to be able to see the fish.
Right. And two, I mean, the higher you go, the more that boat's going to rock. If you're spot locked.
Yeah, you're correct there. It's I have to say, George, it's I tell people it's like a broomstick. You take a broomstick and put it on the ground and you swing it back and forth. And if you're halfway up the broomstick, you're only moving about 4 or 5 inches when you're swinging back and forth. But if you're at the end of that broomstick, you're swinging about 3 feet back and forth.
Yeah.
And you really do see that difference, and you feel that difference up top. When you're running up top that high, it's a big difference when you're running that boat. And I try to tell people also, when you're in waves and you're coming home, just go down below, run it from down below.
Safer.
Don't put that kind of fatigue on the tower. It's not worth it.
Yeah, and it's safer too. And
way safer.
And especially
another thing too that a lot of guys have told me it's been a problem, and I think you kind of fixed it somewhat. And then I've seen some other people, their fixes. When you get this half tower, a lot of times where you're standing, it depends how tall you are. It's where it sits, chest high or whatever. Some companies have made it where you can actually almost flip part of that bottom forward when you're running the boat from further down.
Yeah, you can have a flipping. Your floor
platform
can flip forward. We've done a flip floor before. They're a little noisy if you're not standing on them. They kind of rattle a little bit,
right.
And it's just annoying sometimes. But what we do is we concave the floor. We have a bow machine, and we use. That's the beauty of the cool little machines that we have. We use everything. We put a lot of bends and bows in our stuff to make it match the bows and the bends of the console. We want to improve the quality and the look and the value of your boat, not just throw a tower or a T-top on just because you want a tower or a T-top. There's guys out there that just put a T-top on, and a lot of people think a T-top's a T-top, and it's not. You get what you pay for in this business. It's 100% that all the way through. There's different materials out there. There's Chinese pipe. There's all kind of different gimmicks you can go out and get, and you don't even really know what you're getting if it's an untrained eye and people don't know the business. You can get something that's not as good high quality as we do. We use Western mill pipe, and Western mill pipe is the best you can get. But back to your point, Sergio, on the floor, we take the back portion of the floor and we bow it in, so it gives you that extra view of your electronics and your dashboard of your boat. You don't lose that view when you're downstairs. So we bow that inward about 3 inches. That gives you a good view of all your downstairs dashboard. It comes out pretty nice that way, and we haven't had to worry about doing a flip floor by doing that.
Well, that's good. All right, now I'll tell you what we need to do, guys. We need to get a couple of these fishing reports in. Make sure we get these. So let's hang on a minute and let's get Michael Haynes on first out of Crystal River.
Good evening, everybody. Captain Mike, Fishbones Charters out of Crystal River, Florida. Hope everybody had a wonderful Father's Day weekend. Saw a lot of boats out there. I'm sure a bunch of fathers were out fishing this past weekend. It was pretty hot. And that's my fish report. We'll see you next week. No, it's hot. Water temperature's up about 87 degrees up here. We're so shallow, it doesn't take very long to keep it real nice and hot. So best fishing this week was done underneath the mangroves. We talk about it quite a bit. And I mean, we're talking way underneath the mangroves. Hitting the edge of mangroves is not going to work. You're pretty much having to do a low cast and get that bait to skip way up underneath. Even just a foot underneath the mangroves, you didn't get bites. You had to be 2-3 foot way in the back. Like I said, when it's hot, just like you and me, we hit the shade. Well, fish do the same. Snook, redfish, it doesn't matter. Even the trout, they're deep water. So you got to find that shade. You got to find that cool water along with the moving water. Any of those places that you might have found fish, say in the springtime, you know, it's kind of calm waters way in the back or something. These fish really aren't sticking in there. The oxygen level's pretty low. They're looking for more of the moving water. So any of these mangroves, edges, islands, oyster beds, anything, you're looking for water that's moving across it, over it, around it, in some sort of way that it continues to move that oxygen. That's what they're looking for. A lot of the fish are lethargic, just like you and I would be. So their feeding habits are a little different. They're not really chasing a whole lot of bait unless it's early morning or later in the evening. So we've been using a lot of cut bait, a lot of dead bait, and it's definitely been the trick. So get out there and use some cut bait, cut mullet, cut ladyfish, cut mackerel if you've got it, if you caught it earlier, cut pinfish. Those type definitely seem to be the ticket in catching fish, whether it's snook or redfish underneath the mangroves. I do know the mangrove bite out there has really kicked off as well. Lots of mangroves out on the rocks. So if you get a chance, nice calm weather. Today was just, there was no breeze. It was hot out there. So if you get a chance to get offshore, definitely hit those rocks. The mangroves are fired off. Found a few groupers, shallow, nothing real spectacular, very slow again. Took several attempts to get the bigger ones to bite. Caught a bunch of small ones. It's just time. They're just kind of slowing down. Again, 87-degree temperature water around here tends to slow the fish down, just kind of like a wintertime cold would. So. All right, this is Captain Mike Haynes, Fishbones Charters out of Crystal River, Florida. We will see you next week.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Nice report.
Ryan, just so you know, Mike has got a site, a Facebook page. It's called Fishing Crystal River. He started that a while back. He's the administrator. He's got over 16,000 subscribers on it.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's been. We did a show with him not too long ago. Very nice captain, very good guy, knows this stuff, and you know, so we can't complain. And now, well, let's get because you know we got to do you and get some of these other reports in. But one of the things that you were telling me, and George, this is amazing, is how good it's, you really got to know how to do the weld to get that nice finish that holds up. You see, I never forgot that because I never paid attention to that. And now every time I get in a boat and it's got a T-top or something on it, I'm looking at the welds.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of crazy. So tell me about what is it? Is it a name that you have for that particular type of weld, or not everybody can do it? I know that.
I have to tell you, Sergio and George, I mean, I have to say it's an art.
Yeah.
It can be taught. Okay. Don't get me wrong. It can be taught. And it actually, it's a process, and there's certain aspects of it. It's just like baking a cake. If you skip a step, it's not going to come out right. And I've had welders in the past. We've been in business for 28 years. Okay. So I've had everybody come and go. I've had people from other shops come and go, and they come in, and I don't like calling them bad habits. I just like calling them they're the way they were taught. It's just the way they were taught.
Right.
And I teach them my way. And I actually, be honest with you, when I started this business, I started not knowing I've never touched a welder in my life. And I taught myself. And basically the first 12 years or close to 12 years of the company was open, I was out there working alongside my guys, welding, fabricating, coming up with all the different bends, radiuses, different formulas to make certain things work. You know, like people look at the backrests that go from rod holder to rod holder, you know, in the back of a leaning post, and they slide in and out of the rod holder. Well, there's a formula to get from the center of the outside rod holder to the center of the outside of the other rod holder with your bender. You just don't put it in the bend and guess. And a lot of guys, you'll see a lot of backrests, you'll see where they'll do two bends and they cut it and they splice it in the middle. You know, we do one bend, it's one big U, because you basically have to have a little bit of background in math. You need a little bit of your geometry background for radiuses and you know, circles and circumference and all that stuff. You got to have all that background to be able to come up with certain jigs and certain formulas to be able to make things work. But in short, you know, the welding process of it, there's really not a name for it. When you're on anodized aluminum, you are looking for what they call the skunk tail. And what you're doing is you're basically making that weld have a row of dimes, which is another term that's used in the welding industry. You want that to have a row of dimes, and that skunk tail is basically a nice, smooth silver center stripe, and your anodize is pushed out to the side. Okay, and that being that's your skunk tail. You get that nice silver strip through the center of the weld, and your anodizing goes out to each side. So you got your anodizing on each side and your center silver strip, so it looks like a skunk tail with the white going down the middle and the black on each side. And that's for your anodize. Then for your mill finish, it's pretty much the same process, except everything's nice and shiny and smooth, and your dimes are put in. You don't have an anodize on each side. It just comes out like a row of dimes. And then you get it powder coated. So we do mainly right now, we're doing about 90%. The Skeeter's 100% powder coat. But in the industry itself, it's gone so hardcore and towards powder coating. We're doing about 90% of our stuff powder coated and only 10% anodized. And which was, I would say, about 7 or 8 years ago, it was the other way around. It was anodized and very little was powder coated. Now the powder coating process is so much better, and the powder coats out there are so much better for marine industries. They have a marine powder coat. It's epoxy base. It's got, you know, you do a sandblasting on the frame before you do your acid etching and so on and so forth. Your mechanical etch is a lot better. Plus now the people don't know this, but I see people with corroded powder coating, or they got scratches or nicks in their powder coating. We can actually fix the powder coating on the boat without taking the frame off, and you cannot tell it was ever fixed.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's a good plus in this industry, because a lot of stuff on boats now are powder coated, and if you can fix it on the boat, if you have the know-how to do it, which we do, it's a good plus for everybody. A lot of people don't shy away from powder coat when they know that.
Because I've seen some boats around where the guy tried to touch it up. Oh my God, it's terrible.
Oh yeah, if they use a rattle can, or we use Emron, because basically powder coat is this. It's a 100% ground up polyester paint. Okay, and it's biodegradable, but when it's a negative charge that gets put onto the frame,
Right.
and then the powder coat goes through the hose and out the gun. It becomes a positive charge, and it's almost like a magnet. It gets sucked to the frame, so it goes on the frame as a powder form, and then you put it in the oven at 425 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes, and it bakes, and it becomes a hard shell. Now, when that comes out of the oven, a lot of people don't know this, but you can grab onto that. It's hot, but you can grab onto it. It's not sticky. It's cured. It's done. You can do whatever you want with it. You can grab it on the frame, move it around. It's not going to leave fingerprints or anything like that. It's not like paint. When it comes out of the oven, it's cured and done. But when we're done, if we were to scratch it, our Imron, we can actually airbrush it on, and then it actually blends into the powder coat. And either you can wet sand the edge, and it blends right into where you can't see a blend mark at all, and then you buff it, or almost like blending a car panel on a car, or you can actually, there's a spray out there that we get from our paint supply company that you can shoot it with after you're done touching it up, and it actually burns. It burns it in and blends it in without having to sand it or buff it. And it's when I literally tell you, Sergio and George, if you guys didn't know where it was, and we had a big area, like even a pad or a piece of a pipe, like 4 or 5 inch scratch in it, you would not be able to tell where we did it. That's how good it is when you
there's a question on our Facebook page. One of the guys says, ask him if if he powder coats headers.
You with headers, it's more of a ceramic coat. You want to do a ceramic coat on headers because of the heat.
Yeah.
Powder coat will discolor on headers for cars. So your ceramic coat is a higher heat tolerance. Powder coat is not as high a heat as ceramic coat. So you want to do a ceramic coat, a Cerakote on headers.
There you go.
Now, let me ask you something. On the T-tops, especially the ones that have the hard top, which is a little more weight, what size pipe are you actually using? The inside diameter of that pipe is 2 inch, which the outside diameter, when we all talk about pipe, we always ID
go with inside diameter. And your OD on the 2 inch pipe is 2.5 inches.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Cool.
so the outside diameter of that pipe is 2.5.
Yeah, so you basically have an 1/8 inch wall thickness.
Yes, it's a 40. It's a schedule 40 wall thickness.
Nice.
Yep.
But yeah, we were on the Skeeter, a few days ago, and I mean, when you grab that T-top, it was like, wow, man, look at the size of this. It's like
it was solid. Man, this is big pipe on this thing.
Yeah, it was solid.
Yeah, that's why we put those 1 inch handles on there. For you to grab onto those, a lot easier than that big 2 inch leg.
Yeah. But you can see
now we gotta get caught up here on some fishing reports. So let's get Michael Dawson out of Tarpon Springs.
Hey guys, Captain Michael Dawson here, Patriot Guide Source here with this week's fishing report. So we've been doing nothing but tarpon fishing up this way. It's kind of been our main goal. It's going to be our main goal here until about mid-July. But the tarpon fishing has been really good, and it's going to continue to stay good. Some high winds coming through this week. Coming out of the east, so it shouldn't affect us too much. Those fish like to stick around in the east wind. They'll kind of stick their nose into it, swim to the east. So just move our fish a little bit, but it's not going to take them offshore. If this wind starts to switch from the west, that might be the end of our fish for a couple weeks until the water cleans back up. But east wind shouldn't hurt us too bad. Get out there early morning, late evening. Check around the points of the islands, whether that be Anclo Island, Three Rooker, Honeymoon, Caladesi, or the Sandbar, and these fish will be rounding these bends. Get out there, throw big pinfish, big grunts, cut mold on the bottoms been working pretty well. But these baits will do pretty well getting you some big fish. Fish have been averaging 130 to 200 pounds. Some quite big fish out there. It's been a lot of fun. For those guys not wanting the tarpon fish or just want to catch something bigger and easier, lots of big sharks around. Nurse sharks, bull sharks, hammerheads, tiger sharks. A little bit of everything in the shark chasing these tarpon around. It's a big cut bait on the bottom, a piece of wire. Has been doing pretty well. If you are looking for something a little bit more table fare, lots of mangrove snapper hanging around the Gulf Harbors rocks. Out there on any of the little reefs and rocks in 10 to 15 feet of water. It's getting hotter. The hotter it gets, the more snapper are going to be out there, and it gets pretty good. Captain Michael Dawson, Patriotic Guide Service.
Thank you, Michael. Nice report. Hey,
All right.
because of
We
time,
better
did
get
you
one
want?
more.
I was gonna say, you want to just roll into Tony's or something?
Yeah, let's get Tony Franklin.
Hi, Captain Tony Franklin back with you with this week's fishing report. This week we've had a lot of different things going on. The water temperature's warmed up, the fishing's really got hot, so we'll jump into the fishing report right now. Let's talk about what was biting the best so far this week. Once again, the silver trout, speckled trout have been really hot action this week. Catching some Spanish mackerel also, all on the grass flats, 5-6 feet of water. The best tide's been the incoming, strong, moving tide. That's been the best bet this week. Also, there's been snook action around the mangroves. They're really tight against the mangroves still. Been redfish action around. And a lot of these fish, like I've been saying week after week, is they're pinned right up against those mangroves on the higher tide. And you've got to get that, you got to get your scaled sardine bait way up under there, or throw a cork and let it drift under there. Whatever way you got to do it to get it close up under there. When the tide's not as high, they'll be in the little troughs out front of the grass flats, little deeper pockets of water. So try to find the deeper pockets of water for the snook and the redfish. There's been also action with bluefish. We've had Jack Crevalle action out on the water. There's been ladyfish around. There's been some black drum caught this week. Big black drum around some of the area bridges. A lot of different stuff going on, so you just pick the type of fishing you want to do. Get out there, catch you some fish. Tight lines. I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you, Tony. I'll tell you, Ryan, it's hot out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's hot in your
Yeah.
shop, but let me tell you, out in that sun, it's blistering.
Yeah, it's hot. And then my guys, I'll tell you, I've got 5 welders, and they work for me. And you guys are, your guys are sitting in those towers, and they're surrounded by the welds, and they're welding from one weld to the next. And those welds are around 1,000 to 1,200 degrees when you're welding.
Yeah.
And it's just brutal, but you do the best you can in your shop. You get as many fans as you can. You get a lot of, we got those, water drip cooler feeders that blow out the cool water. Yeah. And everything. So I do the best I can for everybody, but it's still just brutally hot out there right now. Everybody's got to stay hydrated, and even on the water, it really takes the life out of you when you're out there on the water for 4 or 5 hours and you're in that hot sun, and you come home, you just feel like you want to go to bed.
Now,
Jump in a pool.
I've got a question for you. I got another question. Boy, I'm full of questions, ain't I?
Yeah, questions.
Now, I know, like with Skeeter, you have their consoles, and they pretty well. It's like a lot of the companies now, they might make 4 different models, and they're almost using all the same console. So you've already got it pretty well patented that a 22-foot Skeeter or 23 or 25, this is a T-top. The T-top's going to fit all 3 because the console's the same. But when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to build a tower, now that becomes a little more difficult, right? Because you got to start figuring out exactly the mounting points and things like this, or is it?
Well, a tower on a Skeeter is not a big deal because we've got all that figured out already. But if a tower, like say on a different boat, a different bay boat or a different flats boat, we build everything on the boat. Okay. So somebody brings their boat to us. We manufacture it on the boat. The reason why is because you've got, you want to make it sure it fits perfect. Okay. I don't want to take measurements from anybody's boat and just try and make a tower off of it in my shop and hope it fits. B, we also take in consideration, especially for like rear shades and stuff like that, we want to make it go back as far as the backrest on the leaning posts normally. Also, you want to make sure when you're coming off your rear deck, you don't come off your rear deck, step down into the cockpit area and hit your head on the, on the shade. So you got to take a lot of other things in consideration. Plus, you also still don't want to cut off with your rear shade or your T-top or a tower shade in the rear shade area. You want to still be able to use the rod holders that are on your lower leaning post backrest. So you don't want to cut anything off there. Plus, you want to try and also, if at all possible, use your side rod holders on the console that are mounted as well. Sometimes you might cut off the rear ones because your step area for your staircase for your tower is there. But a lot of guys use Boca grips, things like that. They can use Boca, use the last one there for Boca grips, things like that. But a lot of things go into consideration or get taken into consideration when you're baking a T-top or a tower. It's not just jump in the boat and start building and whatever happens, happens. I've seen that stuff out there, and it's unfortunate because some people can't use certain things on their boat they were able to use, and it's just if they would have just taken a little bit of planning, it would make a big difference.
Well, that's like on my boat. When I got my boat, the T-top that they put on there rendered the console rod holders, 6 of them, 3 on each side, useless because they didn't have any grommets or anything going through the T-top, which I don't like that neither because it's a pain to deal with that. I ended up for myself because they had bolted rod holders like where you would sit. So now you're taking away seating because they had rod holders there. So I took that all off, and what I did was I went to somebody, a friend of mine had a 3D printer, and I 3D printed basically the same shape as the top of my stainless steel rod holder, but I printed a wedge on an angle to tilt them so I could actually get the rods in and out going on the outside of the T-top. But not everybody has that luxury. And like you're saying, if you build it right, so like if you have a T-top that you're making for somebody, what do you do if they do have that situation?
Okay, well, I'll just say there's a certain boat company out there, Pathfinder. They have their rod holders. They have those CNC'd half-inch thick plexi or Lexan rod holders that are bolted to the console, and they have a top one and a bottom one, and they have a hole through the top one, and then they have the seat at the bottom for the butt of the rod holder. We actually unbolt those off of the console, and we put flat bars from front leg to back leg, and we rebolt them onto the flat bars. We bring them away from the console about 2 inches. And then we reinstall them back onto the flat bars, and then we put the rod flaps through the top of the canvas, and now you can use your rod holders again on the side of your console. Anytime we can do that on a lot of different brand boats, we do that. We move them out, we get our fabricators. Our guys have been with us I got one guy, Joey. He's my number one guy as far as how long he's been there, as far as style and everything like that. He's been with me the longest, 25 years.
Wow.
And then I've got another guy, Charles. He's been with me for, I think, 15 or 16 years, somewhere around there. Alex has been with me for 11 years. And Dan's been with me for a total of about 13 years. That's how you get consistency. But I just say to those guys, they all know, A, we don't take shortcuts. B, everything is as tight to the console as possible. You try to get it as tight to the console. Number one, there's strength involved in that too. The further away from the console you get, the less strength you have. But you try to get it as tight to the console as possible. A, it's stronger. B, you can use your rod holders on the sides. And also you have an option if they're bolted on, you can actually space them out a little bit too. You can get some nice, good-looking, clean spacers and space them away from the console just a little bit to get past that side pipe that goes on the front to back from the front to back leg.
Right.
But on our hardtops we do for Skeeter, as you saw on Sergio's boat, the console rod holders are usable, and you've got the rod slots through the top of the console or through the top of the hardtop that lets you put your rod tips up through there.
Right.
Now, here's another question. Boy, I love to have somebody like you on because you get the answers. A lot of I've noticed that some of the companies now starting to do it, and I've heard people say, "Hey, I like the idea," where they're on a short tower, they're actually being able to zipper the opening So when they're not using it, if they get into a thunderstorm or something, water just doesn't pour down.
Okay, yeah, you can get a top cover for it that you can put on when you're in the rain. But I will tell you this, Sergio, I don't care what cover you put on. If you're running that boat in the rain, you're going to get wet.
Oh, yeah.
That's all there is to it. You're going to get wet. I mean, you can put all the covers you want on it. And unless you're going and there's no wind and you're going idle speed, that's about the only way you're going to, it's like getting an umbrella, holding it about 1.5 feet above your head and run full speed in the rain. You're going to get wet. Okay. The umbrella will get a little bit off you, but you're going to get wet. So I tell people if they're looking for keeping themselves drier and not having we can do an isinglass windshield on the front of your tower, which you can snap on real quick. And on the powder coated versions, we actually do soft straps that go on. So you don't have to put snaps on your powder coated frame. And it just loops around and it Velcros on. And that keeps you can even do sides on it too. You can do a 3-sided or just a front. And that keeps you pretty dry when you're running. Okay. That's the way we do it. If you're going to run in the rain, especially in these summer days when you got those afternoon thunderstorms and people are out there doing either their full day captain trip, or they're doing a half day in the second half of the day, they're coming back in a rainstorm,
Right.
Do they have, so like if you do put that on the T-top, do they have a zippered area or something so that if it's not raining, you can just unzip it? Or how do you
it's called a U-zip. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you zip it up, you unzip it, and you roll it up, and it's got a little strap up top to hold it rolled up. And you can have the wind come through there and keep you cool and while you're running. And if you get into the rain, you just undo the strap, roll it down, zip it up, and you're dry.
All right.
Good.
Well, it looks like, Ryan, we're just about out of time with you because we got 2 more fishing reports. But we really appreciate it because I tell you what, I'm watching the comments. Somebody like you bring so much information that a lot of people don't know about.
I've been doing this a long time. 28 years. I've seen it all. I've done it all. And I have to tell you, it starts off with the quality boat you have, and then it also starts off with the analogy you have to understand. You do get what you pay for in this business. You will not get a cheap tower or a cheap T-top that's high quality. Those 2 words are never in the same sentence.
Right.
Yeah, and I can understand. So listen, we want to thank you very much for your time. And Holta's been putting all your information up on the screen. I don't know if you can see it, so everybody can see it.
I really appreciate being on with you guys. I want to educate people out there as much as possible about the business and what they can get. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And thank you, man. You did a great job, Ryan.
It's nice meeting you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
George.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Be safe.
Bye, Sergio.
All right. Take care. George, I think it's time for your fishing report.
No, I think we got Bucky. We got Bucky yet.
Oh, well, let's get yours in.
Good evening. It's Captain Bucky Goldman, Bag'em Fishing Charters, Tampa, Florida Fishing Guide.com. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I'm walking off my 5 pounds of sushi I just ate, so I get to treat myself once in a while. So, yeah, I gotta walk it off, man. Anyways, this week was it was pretty busy. I had my kids camp out of Safety Harbor. It was a 3-day kids camp. We ran Monday and Tuesday, and we called it off Wednesday because it was calling for 1 to 2 inches of rain, and it never rained. And we ended up, and that was for Wednesday and Thursday, but we ended up taking the kids on Friday. First day, we got a bunch of nice reds and some snook, and the second day, we went whacked some nice drum. And then on Friday, we did the reds and snook. We bounced around a lot. We actually got into a bunch of silver trout. We were just literally jigging by one of the bridges and just one after another, just pulling up these, 12 to 14 inch silver trout. And we got a really big trout that day too. probably about close to 20 inches one of the boys got. So that was really good. Saturday I took some regular clients out. Sorry I missed the camp, but they treated, Wes treated his dad Jack on a charter and surprised him by flying his brother Alex in from Colorado. We got a real nice redfish bite and a bunch of snook. Action's been pretty quick in the mornings, and then it's been a grind with the water being up, and water's 83 to 86 degrees up in the upper bay. These fish are way back in the mangroves. If you don't have a lot of bait, it's hard to kind of chum them out. We got a lot of unfortunately there's a lot of like drift weeds underneath the mangrove, so you throw back in there when a pinfish would be great, but they keep digging into the weeds and stuff. So it's been a little tricky fishing. Today I had a mom and dad and 2 kids from Georgia that were in town for a wedding, and we went out. We got 2 nice reds and a bunch of snook and popped off quite a few fish today. So we had some bigger fish bite, but it was, you know, quick. A lot of action for the first hour and a half, and then the rest of the day was just a grind, picking up a fish here and there. Bait's been pretty good. There's just ungodly amounts of pinfish. I mean, it's insane the amount of pinfish that are out there on the flats right now, which is great. I haven't seen this many pinfish in a long time. I did catch a few smaller baits, so maybe the little fry bait's going to start showing up pretty soon. That might be nice, because once that fry bait shows up, these tarpon come out, and you start finding these tarpon on the flats gorging themselves on the glass minnows and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to some of that. All
right, we're back.
Very good. And George, let's get your report in real quick.
All right.
Hey guys, this is Captain George Hassick of Fish Hunter Fishing Charters, coming to you from downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. Well, bait was a little bit tough the last few days. I don't know if that rain changed the salinity of the water on the flats, but definitely thinned the bait out. But the bite was good. Snook, trout, redfish, mangrove snapper, jack crevalle, a little mix of everything. So it's out there for the taking. Today, the afternoon really laid down, so we ran out into like 19 feet of water. We sabikied up some baits, and then went and did some mackerel fishing. So, and the bite was really good. The outgoing tide, afternoon, you know, get in front of a range marker, some of the bridge pylons, stuff of that nature, the reefs, the mackerel are there. On the incoming tide in the morning, when it's a little bit cooler, the snook and redfish bite has been pretty good. And then the trout, again, I'm still finding them in anywhere from 5 to 8 feet of water. Look for your grass patches, shell bottoms, stuff of that nature. Your edges of your grass flats where they drop off from 4 feet to about 6, 7 feet. Those areas are also holding mackerel and trout. I'm still throwing the little P&V, but this week we've been throwing chicken on a chain. That's been working for me. The other thing I could say is chumming on the flats. I haven't been chumming as much, lightly, and it's working. You don't have to chum as heavy. And then out in the open water, I'm doing the mackerel, just a steady flow of a little bit of chum here and there, and that'll keep those fish interested, and hopefully you'll keep them behind your boat. And that's what's been working for me. The other thing with the mackerel, sorry about the plane in the background, but downtown St. Pete, sorry about that. But with the mackerel today, we ended up switching. We did hook a massive, I don't know if it was a huge mackerel, could have been a king mackerel. The thing just screamed so much line out, and the hook ended up pulling. But we did get some break off, so we switched to the long shank hooks. We still had a few cut us off, so I switched to a hook with about 6 inches of wire, and that definitely does the trick. So just remember that. But I still like a long shank hook with just a 30-pound leader, because you get more hits with that. Now on the redfish, actually today we did both cut bait and live bait. Almost all of our reds actually came on live scaled sardines and pinfish. And then the cut bait actually caught more snook than redfish today. So mix it up a little bit. You never know what you're going to get. All right, this has been Captain George. Have a good day.
All right. There you go,
Perfect.
George.
It's 8 o'clock.
Man, you worked it just right. Hey, it was really good tonight. I mean, like I said, when I went to visit the guy, he was showing me about welds and stuff like that. I was really amazed. That's why now every time I look at a T-top or whatever, I look at the welds.
Yeah. Well, I have a buddy that's retired now, but he used to right there by Gandy. What was that really big, expensive like yachts that they used to build right there?
Oh, Lazarus.
No, well, maybe.
Yeah, it was Lazarus.
I'm talking about like a long time ago, right?
About 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago.
Maybe longer, like 20 years ago. What was back in there?
It used to be Lazarus used to build those 100-footers.
Okay, well, he was the welder for them, and then he went on his own when he got older. You know, so I got to see a lot of that work, and so when he was explaining dimes and all that, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And that's their art. If you're a good welder, you can make some really nice, like he does, like that T-top. When you look at the T-top we were on, you know, the boat we were on the other day, it's so nice looking.
Everything was smooth. No rough edges.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no, the guy does a good job.
Donald said he was liking the bird noises.
Yeah.
Some Quakers came through.
And we want to thank everybody that helped us Saturday at the kids' clinic. It turned out to be great. We already set a date for June 7th next year, and we're going to shoot for 150 kids next year.
Yeah, it was a good turnout, and
directly, but if we got the parents really interested in scalloping, then they'll take the kids, then the kids will get interested.
Sure.
So, you know, sometimes you think of something that, I don't know if that's going to work. It really turned out to be a super thing.
Yeah, that was neat to see that. Now, the other day I was out and we actually filmed catching bait with the hook tunnel by Wide-Tangle. That's one of our sponsors. And then I just wanted to show you, this is after using it. I don't know if I can get the whole thing in the screen here, but this is what it looks like. It looks like it's a beaky rod, but not attached to anything. So when I got done, as you can see here, all I did was I put the swivel of the one end under the bungee. These bungees is what holds it onto the fishing pole. And then I put the weight under another bungee, and now I can stow this away with no problem. And at the end of the day, all I did was took the garden hose and sprayed down the center just to rinse off the hooks.
And it's going to show up on one of the shows how well it works.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So,
but hey, we want to thank everybody.
The other thing, the boat show this weekend. Remember, I'll be there on the 21st. George has got to work. I got 40 boats going out of Hula Bay, and George is I'll be there with him in the morning, get everybody going, but then I got to run to the boat show. And then Saturday and Sunday, George and I will be there. I'll be working with Skeeter. George will be doing seminars with some of the other captains,